Hey there, everyone. I apologize for the delay right there. Was just changing a couple things with the title and the description. We're talking fall colors in this episode. It is going to be, I guess, not maybe a summer lover's paradise for what I'm going to be talking about, but the forecast will, as we are going to get very warm here for this time of the year. We went cold and now we're getting hot. So back and forth weather from the middle of August now into the middle of September, even stretching into late September. So very interesting how this is all going to play out. Just making sure that my microphone is being picked up and that you guys can hear me. Let me make sure of that real quick. Before we continue on, might have to switch a couple settings here. Bear with me. Not maybe all right. So Facebook has me talking nice and loud. So we're going to get right into it. You may already know this, but in the cooler weather and the shorter days, the tree's chlorophyll, which is the green color, it's what gives the leaves those very nice greens that we all enjoy in spring, summer, and even into early fall, leaving other chemicals. When the chlorophyll breaks down, it leaves other chemicals that give us the color change, such as xanthophyll, which is yellow, carotene, which is orange, and anthocyanin, which is red. Now, the brighter colors are more likely when the late summer is dry, which we've had fairly dry weather in the late summer, and autumn has sunny days and cool nights. Now, we are going to get sunny days. It's just the cooler days and cooler nights that aren't necessarily going to happen per se over the next week or so. It has been that way, which has led to some pops of color already, especially in those younger or even sick trees, some of the trees that are diseased and maybe aren't growing as many leaves right now. They are usually the ones to show some of that color. The dry weather that has lingered since spring, it was all summer, and now getting into September, which it's still summer technically, but as we start to progress into some fall-like weather, the dry weather is actually going to lead to some less vibrant colors. So those across southern and central Michigan, because it's been dry, don't expect those amazing pops of color here this year. You'll have to go into northern lower Michigan, the upper peninsula, where we'll likely have some better colors there. The last couple of weeks have been chilly, stretching back to August 17th. We've had pretty much days at or well below average, which has given us those pops of color already. But now we're going to flip the pattern, and we're going to go warmer here as we roll into the weekend and most of next week. You can see that ridge building on in those warmer colors, meaning the hot temperatures in some cases are expected to occur. Average peak color timing for our area, Upper Peninsula, we're going to start there. You can see that on the lakeshore communities, it's the middle of October when you start to get into this lighter green towards Sault Ste. Marie. Inland, away from Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior, it is early October. And then as you go into some of the cooler regions here in northern lower Michigan, also early October, it's late October towards the Leelanau Peninsula up towards Traverse City. And then as you go south into southern and central Metro Detroit on the lake shore of Lake Michigan and also Lake Huron, as well as Lake St. Clair and Lake Erie, it's more mid to late October as opposed to early to middle October, which is average. That's the running average over the last 30 years on when we usually expect and see some of those fall colors. What we're likely going to have occur this year is not too far away from normal. Because we were cool to start these fall colors the last couple of weeks, we have likely progressed into maybe an earlier start time, but now that we're going to get hot, that's going to delay it. So this week and this week upcoming, so the next 7 days, in combination with the cooler stretch of weather we just went through the last couple of weeks, not including the last couple of days, those are likely going to counteract each other. So we're going to start to get into a middle ground of likely getting closer to average for when these colors are expected to pop. Now, as we mentioned, any Time you get an extended heat wave, that's going to delay it. Anytime you get into the cooler weather, that's going to accelerate it. So once we get towards late September into October, we're likely going to see some cooler weather returning, as is typical for that time of the year. So even though you may not see too much in the way of color change necessarily happening over the next week to week and a half, once we get towards late September, October, those colors are really going to ramp up. And for the late September, early October timeframe, inland portions of the Upper Peninsula, that's when that is expected to occur, especially closer to Canada, the Michigan-Canadian border, up into the Upper Peninsula. And then early to mid-October, where you start to see the lighter brown. When we get into the yellows, that's mid to late October, maybe even early November, in some cases further on off to the south, just depending on how these trees react to this hotter weather and how quickly they start to change when it starts to get a little bit cooler. So that's pretty much what we have to offer you guys for the time frame on when we will expect those peak colors. And peak color is when most trees are colorful, most trees are vibrant, it hasn't gotten into the brown, and they still have quite a bit of leaves on their tree limbs. Now, the only thing that could take the trees down are those very windy fall storms, heavy rain, very strong winds. That's going to rip those leaves right off the branches. And that may happen before we get into peak color. So we don't want any of those big time storm systems to come through before that late September to mid-October timeframe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back into our actual forecast here. We're going to talk about the weather now after we just discussed those fall colors. What was happening out there today, we have a cold front that extends from about Marquette down through Buffalo. That's going to bring an onshore wind and continues to bring an onshore wind off of Lake Huron, which is going to provide us with some extra moisture tonight into tomorrow morning. That means fog is likely to develop in many areas, not likely going to have a dense fog advisory, but patchy areas of dense fog is a possibility. The further away from Lake Huron you are, the better opportunity you have of more of a patchy fog. By the afternoon hours, right around lunchtime, the fog is going to lift, and we are going to have nicer conditions on the way at that point in time. So afternoon and evening on a Friday going to look a lot brighter than what we were experiencing in the morning. So as we progress through the rest of tonight, you can see that fog developing, coming off of Lake Huron, stretching from about Flint up towards Gladwin and points east. Those towards Mount Pleasant, Alma, Owasso, you may not see much in the way of any fog, and that's where some of the warmer temperatures will be in the lower 80s on our Friday. We get back down into the upper 50s, low 60s to start the day on Saturday. A couple rain showers out there, maybe a rumble of thunder, afternoon and evening looking drier than the morning, and then we are dry into our Sunday. Maybe some patchy areas of fog again to start the day on Sunday. Lows will be in the mid to upper 50s to around 60, and then as we go to our high temperatures on Sunday, you can see that those away from Lake Huron are in the low to mid 80s, closer to the lakeshore. We're going to be talking about more 70s with partly cloudy skies. We just showed you this. That ridge is going to be building on in to give us those warmer temperatures, which means the AC might be working a little bit harder here once again as we get into those warmer days. 81 tomorrow, 82 on Saturday, Sunday 85 and 86 on Monday. We already talked about the peak colors, so let's go into the 7-day forecast, shall we? You can see that Monday through Thursday going to be quite toasty. Normal is 75. Will be 10, 15 degrees above that number under mostly sunny skies. So lots of sunshine during the day, which is helpful for those colors. Not necessarily all that cool overnight, though. Mid to upper 50s, which is warmer than normal. It's got a touch of some cooler air at that point, but you really need cooler temperatures than that to really accelerate those fall colors. So the shorter days, of course, will help the colors. The sunny days will help the colors. The somewhat cooler nights will help the colors. So we're really likely going to be in that average time frame for those peak fall colors. Late September to the middle of October, I would say, is when the best colors are going to show themselves. And the further north that you live and the further north that you go, the better your colors will look and be. We'll leave this extended forecast with you for another minute or so, and then we'll end this forecast and end this live stream. Okay, everyone, that's going to do it for us on this Beyond the Forecast. Hopefully you got some good information about the fall colors. It's going to be pretty normal time frame when we're going to see the peak fall colors. Upper Peninsula, more late September to early October. Lakeshore communities in the Upper Peninsula, more mid-October. And then for most of us here in Lower Michigan, mid to late October is when we're expecting those peak colors. But colors will continue to change here over the next month to a month and a half. I always appreciate you guys joining us on these live streams every Thursday evening. We'll be back next Thursday. We're going to be talking about more of that heat and maybe when the heat will break down and we'll get back into some of the cooler temperatures. Soon, we will have a fall foliage map that's going to show us the current foliage. So that's always a good tool that we have to use here over the next month or so. Everyone enjoy their evening. Have a wonderful Friday and weekend coming up. Enjoy the summer weather while we still have it, because we know very, very soon it's going to be feeling like fall, and it will stay like fall.